The crystalline hall of the Galactic Embassy shimmered with light from the floating orbs above, their hues shifting like liquid rainbows. The gathering was meant to be a symbol of progress, a union between humans and the galaxy's dominant species under one roof. Instead, it became the moment everything fell apart. The scream cut through the air like a dagger. Alyssa Morven spun on her heel, her heart dropping as she saw the small, lifeless body crumpled on the black obsidian floor. A boy, no older than 8, lay still, his pale hand outstretched toward a toppled dessert plate. Blood, too red, too human, pooled beneath him, stark against the alien opulence. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd of diplomats and dignitaries. Humans froze in shock. The alien representatives, towering and resplendent in their flowing robes, recoiled with expressions ranging from mild disgust to indifference. Standing over the boy was a tall figure cloaked in shimmering gold, a member of the Xanathi, the ruling race of the Galactic Empire. Lord Vale Threxer lowered his arm, the remnants of an energy whip still crackling faintly in his clawed hand. His voice was cold, devoid of remorse. The child was out of line. Alyssa pushed through the throng, her every step driven by fury and disbelief. She knelt beside the boy, her fingers trembling as she checked for a pulse. Nothing. She rose slowly, her jaw tight, her heart pounding. The air in the room felt thick, suffocating, as the weight of what had happened settled over everyone. "This is not an accident," she said, her voice cutting through the stunned silence. Her gaze locked onto Threxer's cold, unblinking eyes. "You murdered him." Threxer tilted his head, his expression one of faint annoyance. "Discipline is a virtue, Captain Morven. Your species might benefit from learning it." Alyssa clenched her fists, her nails biting into her palms. "He was a child, you monster. He spilled a drink, hardly a crime worth killing him over. You overestimate the value of human life," Threxer replied, his tone as casual as if discussing the weather. "Perhaps this incident will remind your people of their place in the galaxy." The hall erupted. Human diplomats shouted protests, their voices filled with outrage and grief, while alien representatives shifted uncomfortably, unwilling to challenge Threxer's authority. Alyssa turned to Earth's ambassador, a silver-haired man whose face was ashen with shock. "Ambassador Velen," she said, her voice sharp with urgency. "We can't let this stand." Velen shook his head, his voice trembling. "We must handle this carefully, Captain. The Galactic Empire has just declared war on us," Alyssa snapped. "Do you think they'll stop with one child? This is a message, Ambassador. If we let them get away with this, they'll trample over us forever." Threxer's voice rose above the chaos. "Enough! This gathering is over. If humanity wishes to contest the Empire's authority, it will be met with the consequences." Alyssa's hand hovered near her sidearm, but she stopped herself. Drawing a weapon here, surrounded by alien dignitaries and Imperial guards, would be suicide. Instead, she fixed Threxer with a glare that could have melted steel. "You'll regret this." Threxer's lip curled into something resembling a smile. "I doubt that." The next morning, Alyssa sat in the Earth Council chambers, her anger barely contained. The circular room, with its panoramic view of Earth's bustling megacity below, was filled with the sharp hum of tension. The holographic image of the boy's lifeless body hovered in the center, a grim reminder of the previous night's events. "This is an act of aggression," Alyssa said, addressing the council members seated in a semicircle before her. "The Galactic Empire believes we're too weak to fight back. They think we'll cower, that we'll accept their cruelty to avoid conflict." A councilwoman with graying hair leaned forward. "Captain Morven, you're suggesting war. Do you understand the implications? Earth has only recently rebuilt after the resource wars. A conflict with the Empire would prove we have a right to exist," Alyssa interrupted. "If we let this go, they'll take more. First a child. Next a colony. Then Earth itself. The Empire respects strength. We need to show them we have it." Ambassador Velen stood. His voice, weary yet steady, carried across the chamber. "We must be strategic, not reckless. The Empire has fleets that could reduce our colonies to ashes within days. We don't have the luxury of picking fights we can't win. Alyssa rose from her seat, her voice rising with her. This isn't about picking fights. This is about survival. We don't need to defeat them outright. We just need to show them we're not easy prey. A murmur spread through the chamber. The councilors exchanged uneasy glances. Finally, the chairman, a stern-faced man with a deep voice, spoke. Captain Morven, what would you propose? She took a deep breath, her anger channeling into determination. First, we demand justice. The Empire must hand over Threxer for trial. If they refuse, we mobilize. We strengthen our alliances, prepare our defenses, and send a clear message: humanity will not be trampled. The room fell silent. Alyssa scanned their faces, seeing a mix of fear, doubt, and, in a few, a glimmer of resolve. She knew it wasn't enough yet. But it was a start. Hours later, in the privacy of her quarters, Alyssa reviewed the security footage from the embassy. The moment of the boy's death played over and over, each time igniting the same searing anger in her chest. She paused the footage on Threxer's face, his expression one of cold detachment. Her comm device buzzed. She answered, and the face of Lieutenant Reeve, her second in command, appeared. Captain, we've intercepted an encrypted message from the Empire. It's addressed to their fleet near Proxima Centauri. What does it say? Alyssa asked, her tone sharp. Reeve hesitated. They're mobilizing. It looks like they're preparing for a show of force. Alyssa's jaw tightened. They're not waiting for our response. They're trying to scare us into submission. Reeve nodded. What are your orders, ma'am? Alyssa's mind raced. She knew this was the tipping point. Humanity's response now would define its future. Alert the fleet, she said. We're not backing down. As Reeve signed off, Alyssa turned to the window, staring out at the sprawling city lights. Somewhere below, the boy's family mourned their loss. Somewhere out there, Threxer was undoubtedly celebrating his power. Alyssa clenched her fists. Not for long, she murmured. Not for long. The sprawling command deck of Earth's Interstellar Alliance Fleet headquarters buzzed with tension. Holographic screens displayed live feeds of starship movements, tactical maps, and intercepted transmissions from the Galactic Empire. Captain Alyssa Morven stood at the central console, her eyes scanning the data, her mind calculating the stakes. This was no longer a diplomatic crisis. It was a race against annihilation. A junior officer approached, his face pale but determined. Ma'am, all fleet commanders are online for the emergency briefing. Alyssa nodded. Patch them through. The central console shifted to reveal the faces of Earth's top military leaders, each projected in crisp, life-size holograms. Admiral Kane, the veteran leader of Earth's orbital defenses, spoke first. Captain Morven, we've received confirmation that the Empire's fleet stationed near Proxima Centauri has mobilized. Their trajectory suggests they're headed for one of our outer colonies. Alyssa's jaw tightened. Which colony? New Eden, Kane replied grimly. Population, 200,000. They're defenseless. Alyssa took a steadying breath. Then we have no choice. We intercept them before they reach New Eden. General Harlow, a grizzled man with a scar running down his cheek, frowned. With all due respect, Captain, Earth's fleet isn't ready for a direct confrontation. Our ships are decades behind in technology. Engaging the Empire head-on is suicide. Alyssa met his gaze, her voice firm. I'm not proposing a head-on assault. We use their arrogance against them. The Empire sees us as inferior. That's our advantage. Kane's brow furrowed. What's your plan? We split our forces, Alyssa explained. A small, fast strike group will lure the Empire's fleet into an asteroid field near the Proxima Centauri Nebula. The debris will limit their maneuverability and mask our ships. The rest of our fleet will lie in wait, using the asteroids as cover. When the Empire enters the field, we ambush them. Harlow crossed his arms. It's risky. If they spot the ambush... They won't, Alyssa interrupted. The Empire operates on predictability. They'll assume we're too disorganized for a coordinated counterattack. Kane leaned forward. And what if you're wrong? Alyssa didn't hesitate. Then we fight to the last ship. Humanity's survival depends on showing the Empire that we won't bow. The room fell silent. Finally, Kane nodded. I'll mobilize my fleet. Let's give them hell. Hours later, Alyssa stood aboard the Erebus, her flagship, as it hurtled through space. The ship's corridors were alive with activity, engineers running diagnostics, pilots gearing up for deployment, officers coordinating strategies. Alyssa moved with purpose, her presence commanding respect. She paused in the communications hub, where Lieutenant Reeve was monitoring Imperial transmissions. Any updates? Alyssa asked. Reeve looked up, his expression grim. The Empire's fleet has increased its speed. They'll reach New Eden in less than 48 hours. Alyssa nodded, her mind already recalculating. Then we'll beat them to the asteroid field. Have the strike group deploy sensor drones to create a false trail. Make it look like our main fleet is retreating toward the nebula. Reeve smirked. Baiting the predators. Clever. Predators can be outsmarted, Alyssa replied. If you know how they think. The Erebus arrived at the asteroid field ahead of schedule. The strike group, a fleet of smaller, faster ships, moved into position, planting decoy beacons to mislead the Empire. Alyssa stood on the bridge, watching the holographic map update in real time. Status report, she ordered. Commander Vega, her tactical officer, responded. Decoys are operational. Strike group is concealed. Main fleet is holding position in the outer rings of the asteroid field. Alyssa nodded. Good. Now we wait. The hours dragged by, the tension on the bridge palpable. Every officer knew what was at stake. Then, the alert sounded. Imperial ships had entered the system. Visuals on the enemy fleet, Vega announced. Alyssa turned to the main screen as it flickered to life, revealing a fleet of massive Imperial warships. Their golden hulls gleamed against the blackness of space, a testament to the Empire's wealth and power. At the center of the formation was a dreadnought, its size dwarfing the rest of the fleet. Threxer's flagship, Alyssa muttered. Her jaw clenched. He's here. Reeve leaned closer. You think he'll take the bait? Alyssa's lips curled into a grim smile. He won't be able to resist. The Imperial fleet veered toward the decoy beacons, their formation tightening as they entered the asteroid field. Alyssa waited, her heart pounding, as the holographic map showed the enemy moving deeper into the trap. Hold, she said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. The Empire's ships began to slow, their movements cautious as the asteroid field grew denser. Alyssa could almost feel their arrogance, their assumption that they were hunting cornered prey. Now, she commanded. The Erebus and the rest of Earth's fleet surged out from their hiding spots, weapons blazing. The asteroid field lit up as railguns, plasma cannons, and missiles rained down on the Imperial fleet. Caught off guard, the Empire's ships scrambled to respond, their bulky designs struggling to maneuver in the tight space. Target their engines, Alyssa ordered. Disable them before they can regroup. The Erebus fired a volley of precision shots, striking an Imperial cruiser and sending it careening into an asteroid. Alyssa's crew erupted in cheers, but she remained focused. Vega, status on the dreadnought. They're turning to engage us, Vega reported. Their shields are holding. Alyssa frowned. The dreadnought was too powerful to take head-on. She needed to outthink Threxer. Divert power to the forward shields. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. The Erebus weaved through the asteroid field, its weapons firing relentlessly. Smaller Imperial ships exploded under the onslaught, but the dreadnought loomed ever closer, its massive cannons charging. Captain, Reeve called out. We've got incoming fighters. Dozens of them. Alyssa gritted her teeth. Deploy interceptors. Keep them off us. The battle raged on, the Erebus dodging enemy fire while striking back with calculated precision. Alyssa's plan was working, The Empire's fleet was fragmented, their superior numbers rendered ineffective in the chaotic environment. But victory came at a cost. Reports of losses streamed in, each one a knife to Alyssa's heart. She pushed the pain aside, focusing on the mission. They had to hold the line. As the dreadnought closed in, Alyssa made her move. Vega, target the asteroids around the dreadnought. Create a debris storm. The Erebus fired a series of shots, shattering nearby asteroids. Massive chunks of rock slammed into the dreadnought, its shields flaring under the impact. Alyssa seized the opportunity. Fire everything we've got, she commanded. The Erebus unleashed a devastating barrage, striking the dreadnought's exposed flank. Explosions rippled across its surface, and its engines faltered. The massive ship drifted powerless. Alyssa allowed herself a moment of relief. Send a message to the fleet. The Empire isn't invincible. Today, we proved that. Cheers erupted on the bridge, but Alyssa's expression remained somber. The cost of their defiance weighed heavily on her. This was only the beginning. The silence of space was deceptive. From the outside, the colony on New Eden was serene, a lush world dotted with sprawling fields, crystalline rivers, and domed habitats gleaming in the sunlight. Inside the colony's main hub, however, the tension was suffocating. News of the Empire's retaliation had reached the settlers, and the realization that Earth's fleet couldn't arrive in time had sent panic rippling through the population. Alyssa Morven was already en route to the colony aboard the Erebus. The damage from the asteroid field battle was still being repaired, but there was no time to wait. Her face, calm and resolute, appeared on every screen in the colony's command center as she addressed the colony's governor. Governor Tran, evacuations need to begin immediately, she said, her tone sharp but steady. The Empire isn't coming to negotiate. They'll burn everything in their path. Governor Tran, a middle-aged man with weary eyes, wiped his brow. We've already started loading shuttles, Captain, but we don't have the capacity to move everyone. If they attack before reinforcements arrive. They won't attack, Alyssa interrupted, her jaw tightening. They'll obliterate. If it comes to that, we'll hold them off long enough to get your people out. Tran hesitated. And if you don't? We will, Alyssa said firmly, ending the transmission before he could argue. She turned to her bridge crew. Reeve, what's our ETA? 8 hours, Reeve replied, his face tight. The Empire's fleet will beat us there by 3. Alyssa clenched her fists. Signal the Phoenix and the Vanguard. Have them rendezvous with us at New Eden. I want every ship we can spare in that system. They're already en route, Captain, Reeve said. But even with reinforcements, our forces are stretched thin. I know, Alyssa admitted. But we don't need to win. We just need to buy time. When the Empire's fleet arrived in orbit above New Eden, the settlers could do nothing but watch as their massive warships blotted out the sky. Lord Threxer stood on the bridge of his dreadnought, his golden armor reflecting the glow of the planet below. His second-in-command, a Xanathi officer with sharp features and a calculating gaze, approached. My lord, the colony's defenses are negligible. Shall we begin bombardment? Threxer smiled coldly. Not yet. Let them squirm. I want them to feel the weight of their defiance before we erase them. The officer hesitated. Reports indicate Earth's fleet is on its way. They may attempt to interfere. Threxer waved a claw dismissively. They'll arrive too late. And even if they don't, they're no match for us. Alyssa wasn't about to let Threxer's arrogance go unchallenged. The Erebus and its small strike group exited hyperspace at the edge of the New Eden system, their engines burning as they raced toward the colony. The moment the Empire's fleet came into view, Alyssa's orders were precise and immediate. Vega, deploy drones to scramble their sensors. Reeve, coordinate with the Phoenix to provide cover for the evacuation shuttles. The bridge hummed with activity as her crew executed the commands. On the main screen, the Empire's fleet loomed, their firepower enough to wipe out the entire planet. Alyssa's mind raced as she considered her options. A direct assault was out of the question. She needed to outthink Threxer again. Status on the colony's evacuations? she asked. 50% complete, Reeve replied. But we're running out of time. Alyssa nodded. Then we create a distraction. Target the lead cruiser. Draw their attention away from the surface. The Erebus fired a volley of missiles, streaking toward the Imperial cruiser closest to the colony. Explosions rippled across its shields, and the cruiser turned to engage. The Empire's other ships followed suit, focusing their fire on Alyssa's fleet. They're taking the bait, Vega reported. But it won't last long. It doesn't need to, Alyssa said. Keep their focus on us and away from the evacuation shuttles. The Erebus darted through the battlefield, dodging enemy fire while returning precision strikes. Smaller Earth ships harried the Imperial fleet, forcing them to divide their attention. Despite their technological disadvantage, humanity's adaptability and creativity gave them a fighting chance. But the odds were still against them. Captain, we've lost the Aegis, Reeves said, his voice tight with emotion. Alyssa's stomach churned, but she didn't let it show. Understood. Redirect its remaining fighters to cover the shuttles. As the battle raged on, Alyssa spotted an opportunity. A cluster of asteroids near the colony's orbit provided natural cover. If they could lure the Empire's ships into the field, it might buy the settlers enough time to escape. Vega, plot a course through the asteroid belt. Make it look like we're retreating. Reeve frowned. You think they'll follow? They followed us into the last asteroid field, Alyssa said. Threxer's ego won't let him back down. She was right. As the Erebus and its fleet disappeared into the asteroid belt, the Imperial ships pursued, their bulkier designs struggling to navigate the dense field. Alyssa used the terrain to her advantage, ambushing the Empire's ships from unexpected angles and inflicting heavy damage. But the Empire's numbers were overwhelming. The Erebus shuddered as enemy fire struck its shields, sending sparks flying across the bridge. Shields down to 30%, Vega reported. We can't take much more of this. Alyssa gritted her teeth. We hold the line. Every second we keep them here is another second for the colony. Just as the situation seemed dire, reinforcements arrived. The Phoenix and the Vanguard emerged from hyperspace, their weapons blazing as they joined the fight. The tide began to turn as Earth's combined fleet pressed the attack, forcing the Empire to retreat from the asteroid belt. But Threxer wasn't finished. His dreadnought fired a devastating salvo, targeting the colony itself. Alyssa's heart sank as she watched the beam tear through the atmosphere, striking the edge of the settlement. The colony's defenses managed to absorb most of the impact, but the damage was done. Evacuations are complete, Reeve announced. The last shuttle is clear. Alyssa exhaled, her relief tempered by the cost of their victory. Good. Order all ships to regroup. We've done what we came to do. As the Empire's fleet began to withdraw, Threxer's voice crackled over the comms. You've delayed the inevitable, Captain Morven. But you cannot stop the Empire. Alyssa stared at the screen, her expression hard. Maybe not today. But you'll learn that humanity isn't as weak as you think. Threxer's laughter echoed before the transmission ended. As the Erebus and its fleet escorted the evacuation shuttles to safety, Alyssa allowed herself a moment to reflect. They had won the day, but the war was far from over. The Empire would strike again, and next time, the stakes would be even higher. We'll be ready, she whispered to herself, the determination in her voice unwavering. The Erebus hovered at the edge of Erythria's atmosphere, its sleek hull battered but unbroken. On the bridge, Captain Alyssa Morven stared at the tactical hologram before her. The Galactic Empire's fortress world loomed below, its surface bristling with defenses. This was the heart of Lord Threxer's power, a planet guarded by fleets, planetary shields, and legions of soldiers. Taking it would be impossible under normal circumstances. But this wasn't a normal war, and Alyssa wasn't a normal commander. Status on the fleet? She asked, her tone clipped but calm. Lieutenant Reeve glanced up from his console. All ships are in position, Captain. The Vanguard and Phoenix are ready to engage the orbital defenses. The strike teams are prepped for atmospheric entry. Alyssa nodded. Good. This is our only shot. If we fail here, Earth won't survive another assault. Commander Vega, her tactical officer, stepped forward. Captain, even if we break through their fleet, the planetary shields are nearly impenetrable. We'll need a distraction. We'll give them one, Alyssa said, her eyes narrowing. Reeve, patch me through to the fleet. Moments later, the faces of Earth's fleet commanders appeared on the central console. Alyssa's voice carried the weight of every loss they had suffered, every life they were fighting for. This is it, she began. The Empire has underestimated us at every turn. They see us as weak, as inferior. But today, we prove them wrong. Today, we strike at the heart of their tyranny and show them that humanity will not bow. The commanders nodded, their faces grim but resolute. Alyssa ended the transmission and turned back to her crew. Begin the assault. Earth's fleet surged forward, their weapons blazing as they targeted the Empire's orbital defenses. The sky above Erythrea became a battleground, a chaotic dance of fire and steel. Imperial ships, sleek and golden, moved to intercept, their energy weapons carving through space. But Earth's fleet fought with a ferocity born of desperation, their smaller ships weaving through the chaos to strike vulnerable points. On the bridge of the Erebus, Alyssa barked orders. Focus fire on the defense platforms. We need to clear a path for the strike teams. The ship shuddered as it took a direct hit from an Imperial cruiser. Sparks flew from the consoles, and alarms blared. Reeve steadied himself and reported. Shields down to 40%, Captain. Hold the line, Alyssa said firmly. We're not done yet. As the Erebus unleashed a barrage of missiles, the defense platforms began to crumble. Explosions lit up the sky, and the Empire's fleet faltered, their formation breaking under Earth's relentless assault. Meanwhile, the strike teams launched from the fleet's hangars, their dropships cutting through the atmosphere like arrows. Alyssa watched their progress on the tactical display, her heart pounding. Their mission was critical: disable the planetary shield generator hidden deep within the mountains of Erythrea. Without it, the fortress was untouchable. Reeve, keep an open channel with the strike teams, Alyssa ordered. I want updates the moment they make contact. The comms crackled as Major Kellen, the leader of the strike teams, reported in. We're approaching the target, Captain. Resistance is heavier than expected. Stick to the plan, Alyssa replied. We're counting on you. The dropships descended into the mountains, their thrusters kicking up clouds of ash and dust. Imperial ground forces swarmed to meet them, their plasma weapons lighting up the rocky terrain. The strike teams disembarked, their rifles blazing as they fought their way toward the shield generator. On the Erebus, Alyssa monitored the battle, her fists clenched. Every second the strike teams bought was a second closer to victory, or disaster. Lord Threxer watched the chaos unfold from his command center within the fortress. His expression was a mask of fury and disdain. How have they come this far? He growled, his voice echoing through the chamber. One of his officers, a nervous Xanathi lieutenant, hesitated before replying. Their tactics are unconventional, my lord. They exploit the weaknesses in our formations. Then crush them, Threxer roared. Deploy every available unit. I want that fleet destroyed, and I want the humans wiped from my planet. Back in orbit, the battle intensified. The Erebus took another direct hit, sparks flying as systems overloaded. Vega shouted over the din. Captain, we've lost aft shields. We can't take much more. Alyssa's mind raced. Reroute power from non-essential systems to the shields. And bring us closer to the planet. If we can draw their fire, it'll give the strike teams more time. Reeve looked at her, his expression a mix of admiration and concern. That's a dangerous gamble. I'm aware, Alyssa said, her tone steely. Do it. The Erebus dove toward Erythrea, its weapons firing in every direction. Imperial ships pursued, their fire raining down like a storm. But Alyssa's maneuver worked. The Empire's focus shifted away from the strike teams, giving them the opening they needed. On the ground, Major Kellen's team reached the shield generator, a massive structure buried within the mountainside. They planted explosives at critical points, fighting off waves of Imperial soldiers as the countdown ticked closer to 0. "This is Kellen," the Major reported. "Charges are set. We're falling back." Alyssa's voice came through the comms. "Understood. Get clear, Major. We'll be ready." Moments later, the mountain shook as the charges detonated. The shield generator collapsed in a plume of fire and smoke, and the planetary shields flickered before failing entirely. On the Erebus, the bridge erupted in cheers. Alyssa allowed herself a brief moment of relief before refocusing. "Target the fortress. All ships fire at will." Earth's fleet unleashed a devastating barrage, their weapons pounding the Empire's stronghold. The once imposing fortress crumbled under the onslaught, its defenses shattered. In the command center, Threxer watched in stunned silence as his Empire's symbol of power was reduced to rubble. Alyssa opened a channel to Threxer. His face appeared on the screen, his arrogance replaced by cold fury. "You've lost," Alyssa said, her voice unwavering. "Surrender now, or we'll finish what we started." Threxer's lips curled into a snarl. "This isn't over, human. You may have won the day, but the Empire will rise again." Alyssa met his glare, her gaze steady. "Not if we have anything to say about it." Threxer cut the transmission, and moments later, the remaining Imperial ships began retreating. The battle was over, and humanity had triumphed. As the debris of war settled, Alyssa stood on the bridge, her crew around her. The cost of victory weighed heavily on her, but she knew this was a turning point. Earth had shown the galaxy that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. "We've taken our first step," she said quietly, her voice filled with both resolve and hope. "Now we build the future." The crew nodded, their faces reflecting a mix of exhaustion and determination. They had survived the impossible, and they were ready for whatever came next.